Great. Awesome. Andrew Harriman, CEO, co-founder of the Patient Company. Thanks for the great introduction. We are working on how patients are moved, specifically starting with Simple, which is our patient transfer system focused on all the motions where pulling is required in healthcare systems. So maybe a bit of a shock to the people in the audience who haven't seen me present before, but nurses are actually the most injured job in any industry in the United States, and majority of those injuries are coming from physically moving patients. There's all sorts of patient movements that contribute to this, but really what we found in our market research is this pull movement, specifically pulling this way and that way, is really not ergonomically sound and results in a lot of workers' compensation injuries. This is no good, especially considering the current and persistent nursing shortage. Another kind of major point that we're focused on is all of these drops when you're moving patients are a subsection of falls. Patient falls is and continues to be a really big focus within healthcare system, and all of these movements when you're pulling patients, when done with our technology, can be removed entirely. So not talking about risk reduction, but risk removal. It is a small subsegment of falls, but really important for our healthcare systems. So what are these movements I'm talking about? Specifically, first one is lateral patient transfer. I'll show a demonstration video of that in a minute here. That's moving a patient from any one flat surface to another. The next is boosting, which is moving patients up in bed. Patients have a tendency to fall down toward the end of the bed during their stay. Supine to seated is just going from lying to a seated position. The last is turning to proning, which is still in development, but that is actually physically rotating patients either onto their side or from their back to their stomach or vice versa. So how that's done today, number one, most common is still just manual. So there's a lot of products out there that support these movements. So I'll talk about them just here to follow. But what we find is that they very much go unused, and manual process really is the default or the standard in these healthcare systems today. There is one product that's picking up a lot of steam, specifically post-COVID. It's this kind of air-assisted category. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but really what it is, it's an air mattress that has perfusion through the bottom. So it makes it a little bit easier to move patients around. There's three major OEMs selling these. Hopefully you recognize these names, but HoverMat is actually who invented this technology. They're one of the major OEMs, and then Stryker and Medline. Between the three of them, they're doing over $1 billion in revenue annually just with this product category. And then the last is a category of lifts. So really to simplify, lifts have been around in hospital systems for a very long time. They move patients up and down. We're the first product that effectively moves patients forward and backward. Pretty straightforward. So wanted to just really quickly show you how this is done. Boosting on the left-hand side here, you see really 1, 2, 3 pull, moving the patient from the foot of the bed towards the head of the bed. There's one product out there that automates this called Hercules, and that solution is about $10,000 per bed. Supine to seated, I actually think is a really funny one. People always say, okay, you're moving someone from lying to seated, big deal. How this is done manually is actually just by rotating patients twice. So you rotate them onto their side and then from their side onto their rear. Very ineffective, caused a lot of injuries, really timely to do as well. I actually just before this received a report from a hospital system we're working with. It takes them about 28 to 30 minutes specifically to do the supine to seated task, which again, most people do every morning when they get up, right? So just kind of describing this problem, which again, persisting on the manual side, OSHA and ANA, many other bodies mandate no more than 35 pounds lifted by any clinician at any time. But because it takes so long to use the technology that's out there, or because there's not enough staff around, average patient movement is demanding about 90 pounds. Again, takes so much time to get these people together. Would you wait 22 minutes or would you just go ahead and pull the patient over? Right. So that's really what we're seeing in the healthcare space. I'm going to pull up a video really quick. Bear with me as I switch over. No promises on my ad. Big water. Great. Sorry about that. So I'm just going to narrate this as we go through. What really makes Simple unique and different is we attach to whatever's already underneath the patient. So in this example here, it's just a standard flat sheet that's underneath your patient. You wrap our bar into the sheet, and then we have a slip knot that goes around either end, connecting to that bar to the surface that they're already on top of. So there's no need to turn, rotate your patients, put them on something new, use single patient use disposable products, just works with whatever's already underneath them. Makes it really fast and effective. This whole video is 1 minute and 28 seconds, and this is with narration of how to do this during. So sorry for kind of playing a little catch up here, but that's the device itself. Really, all you do is you brace it up against the surface that you're transferring the patient to. For boosting, you just brace it up against the top of the bed. You reach out, you connect this strap to the setup piece that's already been done before you get there. And then from there, you're just holding a button and the patient is sliding right over. So it is really straightforward. One caregiver can use this device. A second is mandated to be in the room effectively to make sure that the patient is okay. In this video, you'll see that they're kind of guiding the feet, making sure that they're coming over safe and smoothly. You can have that second person doing line management. You can have them just making sure that the patient is comfortable, keeping the pillow under their head, keeping them in C-spine, really frees up staff to do these patient movements. So last thing is this wraps up here. Hopefully everyone understands the concept. The device itself is rated for 1,000 pounds. The limiting factor is really what your patient is on. So most hospital sheets are rated for either 350 or 500 pounds, but again, we connect to alternative products with higher weight loads. So moving forward, again, just kind of a recap now, taking you through the problem and solution. 22 minutes on average, 4 to 8 clinicians to move these patients required extreme force resulting in these injuries or a custom surface, which means you're putting something under your patient just to move them, which typically isn't done. Simple in contrast, 2 to 3 minutes, one clinician, no force at all, and it works with whatever's underneath your patient already. So this market, like I said, from those OEMs in the air mattress space has already been proven. There's $1 billion being made in this category today on single patient use disposable products. We think our annual market opportunity is about the same, especially once we add in this turning and proning function. You see, I've got one for every 6 hospital beds on average, and then one for every 3 in radiation oncology. Very similar in procedural environments as well. Basically more patient movements that are done, more devices that you need. Pretty straightforward. So our development timeline here, we started development in the middle of COVID and kind of delayed our time to market there, but we got everything done, wrapped up, started manufacturing with the close of our Series A in September 2023. I call it Series A1, and then started manufacturing, started initial delivery really in June of last year. Two major points I really want to point out. We were extremely capital efficient during that time, got to market for just over $2 million. And the other is that we completed 3 clinical studies. The third was with Mayo Clinic, specifically in their cath lab, looking at those procedural environments where a lot more patient movements are done. They use the air assist already in that space. And what they found was that people loved it compared to manual. You had to still have 5 to 7 people to transfer patients over. 100% success, but they're spending $400,000 to $700,000 a year just in one cath lab room. Broad and simple, and our staff preference was a little bit lower, to be fair. Also took a little bit more time, but less people needed for these transfers. And our cost in the same environment is $8,000 a year. So really excited about the cost savings while kind of keeping this clinical standard. We know we have to work on staff preference, but that is an environment where those air mattresses are already underneath the patient when they get there. So we really think that through training, through implementation process, we'll get that staff preference up and be able to save a lot of money throughout these procedural departments. Then we'll be expanding into more general nursing floors. So that's what we're doing right now. Kind of covered what we did 2021 through 2024, and then just mentioned that we commercially launched in June of last year. Our goal is to get to 15 healthcare systems with over 300 units sold by the end of 2026, by which time we're really looking to effectively scale and standardize in a more standard way, less startup, more general business growth, get to 45 healthcare systems with 2,000 units sold before we exit to a lot of probably the likely names. I'm sure some people have some ideas already in this space. So key milestones over this last year or so: completed that first close of the Series A, added in the functionality for boosting supine to seated, got an additional 2 patents filed, trademarked, simple, finished our last research study. Through the manufacturing kind of setup process, we have 70% gross margin at launch, and we also have extremely high manufacturing capacity. And then we got 65 units delivered, so a little bit lower, honestly, than we were hoping for in sales year 1. Got a couple months left. But what was interesting is it was actually to 10 health systems already. So we're really seeing a good opportunity in terms of land and expand. I'll kind of give a little bit more detail as I run through these last slides. But last really big thing for us was we got awarded a VA contract, and then we also got awarded Vizient and Premier, the 2 largest GPO groups, both of their Breakthrough Innovative New Technology Awards. So we are on contract with those groups as well. Really, hopefully you can see setting the stage for growth and scale. These are current accounts, so I just want to kind of really quickly show you what I'm talking about. A lot of single digit numbers here, right? So what we're really seeing is kind of this high interest on the front end, the ability to get a couple devices in, try it out, and really the kind of growth strategy from there is to move forward and close more business in those accounts as we focus on this big messy slide, which really the point is just to show you there is a lot of red, which is just a lot of delays. So we are capital equipment, made that pretty clear. But the problem with being capital equipment is you will always be secondary to a pediatric MRI machine. It's kind of our internal joke. Basically just stating that there's always going to be competing priorities until we're really ingrained in the system. We got to keep pushing them and understand there's going to be a lot of people we're working on as some of these close. And then showing you more green here. This is just since January. A couple of new accounts. Actually got another call today, moving forward either into evaluation or into close. We've had a pretty strong but small team to date, and really that's why I'm here today is we're looking to grow this team going into sales year 2 to kind of meet the needs that we're seeing in this marketplace and get the coverage that we need as we've been pulled all over the place in this first year. Really effectively 2 people doing the sales. We've got the Andrew and Andy dream team there at the bottom. Really strong operations team, and our board I couldn't be more proud of. I don't make it explicitly clear in the beginning of the presentation, but our manufacturing is contracted. So happy to answer any questions on that as well. Like I mentioned before, really right on track with our exit planning here in terms of getting out there, proving that this market exists, proving that we can compete with these air assist products and win business, introducing product functions, winning GPO contracts, and now we are really set to scale. We have had some international interests just over the last four or 5 months here now. So starting to form a strategy around that, as well as how to scale through partnerships or with strategics as well. So this is where the Series A 1 and 2 comes into play here. So we did an initial close of $3 million, like I said, in September 2023. That was always the plan, was really wanted to get kind of to this first first sales year end, and then going into sales year 2, make sure we have the funding we need to go from that into profitability, scale, and exit. So these are kind of the general buckets. I know that 5 million in the first category plus 500,000 doesn't equal 5 million. That'll be my first question, I assume. Kind of a bit of a slot budget, if you will, between inventory and product improvement. We can fund inventory through debt or with a PO purchasing program that we have in place. So that's kind of where the variability is. Thank you for the time. Really excited to be here. I know it's a busy time of year for everybody, so thanks for taking the time out of your schedule and open to any questions.
Yeah, hi, Andrew. I was wondering, where is the product produced now?
Yeah.
And with the contract that you have with the manufacturer, can you benefit from lower costs based upon increasing volumes? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. So we're manufacturing in Waukegan, Illinois, just north of Chicago. Really, basically, right now we have a fixed cost at 100 units, which is 5,000 per device. To get a cost reduction, we have to go up to 300 units, 20% cost reduction at 300 units, and then it seems kind of marginal from there, to be honest. But I think at 1,000 units, we get an additional 10 to 15%. So between 500 and 1,000, not much room to be gained. We do have offshore and onshore for every component that's a part of the device. I know there's been a lot of commentary around tariffs the past couple of weeks or so I've heard.
I think Waukegan is onshore.
Waukegan's onshore last I checked, but yeah, hopefully it stays that way.
It's on the shore.
Right. Canada's not far.
Questions? Yes.
Andrew, can you just comment on your sales model?
Yeah.
You said that you didn't hit the numbers you were anticipating and so forth. Like, you're selling direct, and it's contract before it's delivered. Try before you buy. Can you just elaborate?
Yeah, no, thank you for that clarifying question. So the team I showed just here, that's our whole sales force, just the 2, Andrew and Andy today. So idea was going to this first sales year. We had a lot of healthcare systems that were involved early on, and we didn't know really what to expect for a second order, meaning we had a couple of units that would be placed. Would the second order be 1 or 2 more departments, or would it be house-wide? Would it be across the entire system? So that's really where we kind of fell short in the first sales year. It was more department by department, which is leading us into sales year 2, focused on a growth strategy with partnerships, either distributors, service agents, or contracted work as needed. we know that two people can't cover the whole country for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, hey, Andrew. So, when we last talked, part of follow-up to Randy's question, you thought you were worth a certain amount as a company when you're raising the money. What
Jeez.
have you learned from the market since?
Yeah, from the market. I think it's still a tricky question. I want to be clear. There's actually been 4 healthcare systems that have quoted for over 70 units each. And I think that's really where we're still trying to determine this first sales year going into the second sales year. What's that speed of adoption look like? And I think that is critical to our valuation. If they are going to move to house-wide quickly, I think our valuation is going to be increased dramatically through that. If it's going to be hand-holding department by department, it's going to take us longer. We're going to need more headcount, and I think that's going to directly impact valuation.
Andrew, have you thought of, this is sort of a joke, but you could sponsor a class action lawsuit on behalf of all these clinicians, put a little pressure on people, and your settlement is take this, or maybe less of a joke. Have you talked to disability and workman's comp insurance companies to see whether they would create any kind of discounts?
Yeah.
if people adopted either this or other systems.
No, thank you. And it's something that's going on in the industry right now. We're working with Gallagher Insurance Group, which is one of the large players in the space, and they have told us they've actually been requested from customers. So state of healthcare aside, hospitals are saying if we have equipment available and we can prove that it wasn't used, can we basically decline workers' compensation because they're not doing what they're supposed to be? So I think that's kind of the momentum that we're looking to ride, as well as on the cost side, right? Is there is a lot of really friendly or advantageous conversations in the industry going on right now. Another similar one was several years back, mobile lifts and sit-to-stand lifts were mandated to be on every single care floor. So if we could get a similar mandate to bring Simple onto every single care floor, again, there's a lot of those kind of systemic type changes that we would fit right into. So awareness is critical for us in that sense of the more groups that we can be involved with, the more exposure we have to make it clear that with our product, that may be an option for you is really where we're at today. Brian, do you have a question?
Yeah, there's a question online. What are the primary gating milestones customer decision makers have surfaced in order to explore moving from 1 to 2 units to larger purchases?
Yeah. Yeah, this gets into hospital kind of purchasing process. And Randall, maybe back to some of your question on the sales process itself. Sorry. So really what we look to do first is demonstration to evaluation. Our evaluation is a free trial process. It's very common in healthcare. We go from that into an initial purchase. That next purchase is really where we're still kind of fact finding. What's interesting is we are capital equipment with just 1 unit. So we figured that this would go house-wide faster in the sense of if you're going to buy 5, why not buy 1 for each department of the same type? And we just haven't found that to be the case yet. So in terms of gates, I think was the word.
Yeah, gating milestones.
Yeah.
Decision makers.
Yeah, so what the decision makers are really looking for is before we go house-wide or go to all departments, let's collect some data to prove that this is working. The cath lab slide that I presented is a great example of that. Is a forecasted slide, right? So the cost of the air mattresses that have been there, that's firm, that's numbers from the institution, that our cost was only such with 0 injuries over a specific time length. You can't prove that until you're in the hospital for that amount of time. So that's really what we're seeing in terms of kind of sales cycle. The other thing is the budget cycle itself. I just was told that we're moving forward with the hospital system. I said, great, when should I deliver them? They said, well, we'll get the money approved in June, which means it can be delivered 12 months from when the money is approved. So that is definitely a problem that we're up against as well in terms of sales cycle.
One follow-up question to the Mayo cath slide that you had. I mean, it's 4 units at $8,000 and they're $16,000 a unit. So you didn't charge them full price. That's not going to be their annual actual cost.
So thank you for that clarifying question. We have since also rolled out a monthly or annual purchase model. So this is actually just 2 units annually for 5 years. And then after 5 years, it would be just our service agreement annually, which is just about $1,000 per device. So yeah, thank you for helping me clarify that though. Yeah.
Question?
Andrew, you were hinting at a couple of future add-on moves.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one, we have a fully functional prototype for turning and proning. It's essentially a human hot dog roller, as grotesque as that may sound, but we have a giant giant foam roller that rotates with kind of like a rolling pin through the axis. So as the patient gets closer, just from being pulled by our device, they rotate naturally away from the roller. So that's all done, as you know, good and well. It works great. It's really ugly right now. So working on just kind of getting that cleaner for hospitals to actually get into use to try. After that, we have some kind of digital solutions. Think like a fleet management dashboard, and then outside of that, accessories to allow for other things. So one thing that's interesting in this space, we connect to everything. That's one of our major value propositions. But we have so many hospital systems that say, "But what do you recommend? What do you have for us? What can we put under every single patient?" So we are working with a company to develop a custom sheet, which allows us some other opportunities.
If I heard you correctly, you could go prone to back or back to prone.
That's correct. Yeah. Mhm.
Have you ever thought of you're getting yourself into the OR doing that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm gonna, well, the orthopedic.
Yeah.
A lot of orthopedic procedures, there's spinal procedures where you need to flip the patient, and that's a nightmare today.
Yeah, and that goes directly into how it's expanding our market reach. So right now, with just lateral transfer and boosting being used for most of the time, we're one for every 10 to 12 hospital beds on average is what we're finding. But we think that with turning and proning, because we'll have higher access in rooms like the operating rooms, as well as just long-term acute care floor is a great example. You have to do a back check every 3 hours. That's going to be a game changer for them. Yeah, Chris, please.
Another question about the market. You mentioned this competitor that's 10,000 per unit.
Yeah,
is that right?
that's correct.
So, do you think as you enter the market, they might drop their price, or is there a reason why you might have some headwinds from others out there who don't want to see you succeed?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the air mattresses would be the best one in terms of dropping those prices, but ultimately it just gets down to our model versus theirs. Even if we have a custom sheet, they can never, it's not going to be a race to the bottom, so to speak. It's a differentiator. This product is very interesting. All they do is boosting, which is one of our many functions today already. Installs into the bed, $10,000 per system. They did over $40 million in sales last year. And what's interesting is they have a major problem, which is that when their system's like a conveyor belt, so whatever's at the feet of the patient, under the patient, will be under the head of the patient at some point. So I'll let you use your imagination on colors there, but not a pretty story over a couple days.
All right, well,
Great.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody.